Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Virtual House Church. I'm glad you guys could join us today. If you are new here to the Virtual House Church, you can go to our website, virtualhousechurch.com. Virtualhousechurch.com. This is a old website I put together back in 2012, 2013, somewhere around that time frame. It's in the process of getting an overhaul. And so far, I've updated all the links up to our present day, which is Exodus week 16. So all these links will take you to the new website. So, for instance, if you click on the Who We Are tab, it just tells you a little bit. Let me enlarge it for you guys. A little bit about Sheila and I. And Virtual House Church store has the calendars. These are still good until the month of Passover. So another couple months or so. You can click on that for a free PDF that you can download or print off yourself. If you want a printed copy professionally done, you can click on the domestic button if you live in the United States, international, outside of the States. And Juan Carlos put together a slightly different calendar, reckons some of the dates a little bit differently. And in both calendars, they explain why they've chosen what they've chosen. So you can read and study and pray and decide for yourself which one is correct. And below that are the Torah Study workbooks, which you can get through Amazon, probably quicker through them, although they've been a lot slower than they have been in the past lately. And you can get them cheaper if you go through us. I am currently up to date with all of my orders, so if you've placed an order and you haven't received it yet, just be patient. It's in the mail. Mailed everything out last week, so we are up to date on all of our orders. If you'd like to get it instantaneously, you can click on the PDF versions of them right there. And below that is the Ephraim Awakening DVD-ROM that contains all the resources you see right there on the screen. So lots of stuff for you to take advantage on that one disc. Our statement of faith, well, it's just what it sounds like. That's what we believe here at the Virtual House Church. Coming Out of Babylon is a page I specifically made for new people. People who, first of all, what does it mean to come out of Babylon? A little bit of history of what that meant to me and why I started this website, and the first broadcast that we did back in 2010, if you can believe that, all the way back then. 21 years ago, a little over 20 years ago. Excuse me, a little over 10 years ago. Sorry. Let's see. Other videos that you can see here, books, tons and tons of stuff. Just lots of resources, as you can see. A lot of videos here for you to check out. You could spend the better part of a month probably just on this page alone. And then, of course, I recommend the books that you see there. You click on them, and it will take you to how you can order them if you're interested. Let's see, below that, Torah Fellowship. That takes you to this page right here, which takes a few seconds to load, so just give it a few seconds there to do its thing. But it loads an app that 119 Ministries put together where people who are doing what we're doing here today have decided to put themselves on the map. And wherever you are in the world, let's see, let's go over, we'll go to Spain this time. And Sevilla, I've been there. Well, it's just south of Sevilla. I've been there. Inez, not sure if I pronounced that right, Strickland. That's how it works. You just click on one of those little tabs and it will tell you the person and some contact information for how you can reach out and, hopefully get together with them maybe. So that could be a valuable resource for you. Many times people who come here for the first time, they are tempted to quote Paul to try to say what we're doing here is wrong. Let me just say first and foremost that all of the hosts here at the Virtual House Church, we all love Paul. We love Paul. We accept Paul as a legitimate apostle and Holy Spirit-inspired author of Scripture, as even Peter testified that he considered Paul's writings to be Scripture. So we love Paul. But there are certain, let's say, frequently asked questions or comments that people make regarding something that Paul wrote, which I contend you shouldn't read or quote a single line that Paul wrote until you thoroughly understand what Paul read, studied, and likely had memorized. Once you do that, you'll have a better understanding of what Paul's talking about. So there's a bunch of blogs here, sort of frequently asked questions and issues dealing with Paul. We've even got an entire page dedicated just to the book of Galatians. Are you really a foolish Galatian for trying to obey Yahuwah? No, not at all. But this will go into a lot more detail on that. Hebrew calendars, again, that's a separate page just specifically for the calendars, which will be updated when we have the new ones. But you'll notice that the right side of the screen populated with some new resources here, so you can do keyword searches on the website. Yahuwah's Love Letter, Psalm 91, audio, both will be a blessing to you if you have not heard them before. Online tools that I like to use are blueletterbible.org, biblegateway.com, bible.cc, bible.is, and then there's the link to get the Aramaic English New Testament Bible put together by Andrew Gabriel Roth. Really good resource there. If you'd like to support what we do here, we are listener supported. We can't do what we do here without people like you, and I truly mean that. So for those of you who have contributed in the past, thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't say thank you enough. Again, we couldn't do it without you. So if this ministry has been a blessing to you, you can help us continue by clicking on that button right there. And below that are other Torah ministries that I enjoy. Torah Family by Steve Mutria, New to Torah, Zach Bauer, 119 Ministries, Unlearn is Lex Meyer's ministry, and of course Jim Staley's teachings right there. So you can click on those to visit their websites and see the resources that they have to offer. And then we go down to this week's study right here. And I update this. I tried to get it done on Fridays. I didn't get it done last night, so I got it done this morning. But this has the player for this week's reading. Oops, I don't have the audio set so you can hear that. Let me do a quick change of my audio settings here, because you'll need that in a minute. This should work. Stand by.
Go. God did not lead them by way of...
There we go. So you can have the scriptures reading be read to you from Exodus and the prophets and the New Testaments. And then below that is the Parsha in 60 seconds. That's a Hebrew word for study, and there's a ministry out there that distills the Torah portion down to 60 seconds. Really cool. Right below that is the live stream that we're doing right now, which will be archived here and stay here for the entire week until I update this page for next week's study. And then finally, click on this page right here. That button takes you to the current week's study. In this case, it's week 16, Bishalach, which means when he sent or let go. If you're viewing this on a computer, this website is best viewed on a computer. If you're viewing it on a mobile device, it's like a tablet or a cell phone, you can click on this, and it takes you to a different version of the site that reformats itself, so you can view it like this on a cell phone, for instance, or perhaps like this on a tablet, whatever. So just another way to view the site if you're on a mobile device. Going back to the computer one, again, here's the scriptures. It takes you to Bible Gateway if you click on those. And let's go ahead and play the Parsha in 60 seconds. We'll get started here.
Shalom and welcome to Parsha in 60 seconds. Today's portion is from Exodus 13:17 through 17:16. It is called Bishalach, which means when he let go. Pharaoh let the Israelites go. Moses took the bones of Joseph, and God went before them in a pillar of clouds by day and a pillar of fire by night. The Israelites camped by the sea. Pharaoh had changed his heart, and he chased the Israelites with chariots. God used Moses to part the Red Sea, and the Israelites went through. The Egyptians pursued, but God slowed them down by locking their chariot wheels. God used Moses to close the Red Sea, and the armies drowned. Miriam then sang a song to God. 3 days later, they came to Marah, but the water was bitter. God sweetened the water with a piece of wood that Moses chucked into the water. Soon, hunger became an issue, and God provided bread that fell from the sky. They wanted meat, so God provided quail. The manna would expire after a day, except before Sabbath. Thirsty again, the Israelites complained, and God instructed Moses to hit a rock, and water flowed out. Israel was attacked by Amalek. During the battle, Moses held up his hands, and Israel prevailed. But whenever he let his hands down, Amalek prevailed. Moses grew weary. He sat on a rock, while Aaron and Hur held up his hands. And Joshua conquered Amalek in battle. God would utterly blot out the memory of Amalek. And that is Bishalach in 60 seconds.
There you go. There's the Torah portion distilled down to 60 seconds. As you can tell, there's a lot going on, a lot to cover in this week's study for sure. And in the past, we've done in-depth studies you can listen to the archive from 2013, watch the video from 2014, which is interesting. I just posted something about the Book of Eli this week. It's without even realizing that this week's Torah portion, at least back in 2013-14, that I talked about it. But I saw a commentary on the Book of Eli, which I posted on Facebook just a couple of days ago. Interesting that it just popped up again in this week's Torah portion. Below that is the 2017 broadcast that we did with Now You See TV, and then again we have the broadcast we're doing right now. Here's the study done by the Way Biblical Fellowship by JP and Charlie, so you can check out their study there. I recommend you print off and download all of these every week. And study them. These are the studies put together by Ardell from YourLivingWaters.com. She did several from 2008 to 2010 for each week, and she goes really in depth into really good studies of the Hebrew, that's used there, and just all kinds of incredible insights. So highly recommend every week you download those, print them off, put them in a binder so you have it. When you complete the entire year's study, you'll have a very thick book of incredible information. Workbook study questions that you can just the same questions every week to help get the gears turning right there. Didn't really have anything new for the Joshua portion. It's pretty much the same reference we had last week. Notes from this week's study from the past. You can read all this stuff right here. These are the notes from previous years and maps of the crossing of the Red Sea where it took place, and findings of Ron Wyatt and whatnot. So lots of cool stuff for you to check out there. All right, without further delay, let's go ahead and jump into our study for this year. And I'm excited to welcome back to the Virtual House Church Juan Carlos and Jake Grant. Hey guys, how you doing? Shabbat Shalom.
Hey. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Lots of stuff to cover for this week's study. So since I have Juan Carlos, you're right next to me on the screen. We'll start with you this week. What were your thoughts and insights on this week's study?
Sure, Rob. It's always a blessing to be in the Virtual House Church. So as you said, there is a lot of stuff here to share, and I have picked up few insights of what it got my attention when I was reading this portion. I want to start with the first one. Is what I call the trial will become harder. And by the way, guys, the storm started here in the place that I am today. So if you hear rain and some noises, because I'm in the middle of a storm.
Maybe we'll get some cool sound effects. Maybe you can say something really important, and then it'll go.
When the sea is departing and parting itself, right. Maybe we'll have some sounds.
Right on. We'll get some sound effects with this broadcast.
Yeah, exactly. So trial will become harder, and for me, it was very interesting to see what was the reaction of Pharaoh and the people of Egypt when they heard that the Israel was going out. They realized that what they have done. And basically they said, what we have done this. And this is basically, I'm talking about what is written in the chapter 14 of Exodus, from the verse 4 to the verse 10. So basically we see in the beginning of this chapter, Yahweh telling the people what they need to do. And let me read for you guys. It said, and Yahweh spoke to Moshe saying, speak to the children of Israel, that they turn and come before Pi Hahirot, between Migdol and the sea, opposite Baal Zephon. I'm reading from the verse 1. Come before it by the sea. For Pharaoh shall say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land. The wilderness has closed them in. And I shall strengthen the heart of Pharaoh, and he shall pursue them. But I am to esteem through Pharaoh and over all his army. And in the streets, the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahuwah, and they did so. And it continues in the verse 5, and it says, and it was reported to the sovereign of Mizraim, the sovereign of Egypt, that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people, and they said, why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And we continue reading for the next verses. We see what's happening. The heart of all the Egyptians, the heart of Pharaoh, was really hardened by Yahuwah, and they relented of what the decision they made in order to let the people go. So we see that when we start reading the entire narrative of what happened, because this is exactly before the parting of the Red Sea, we see that the people of Israel, when they saw this big army going against them, they were really afraid of what was going on. So when I was reading this, several things and verses popped up on my mind, and this is the one that I want to share. We saw that Israel was under slavery. We saw that Pharaoh didn't want to release them from slavery. We saw this last week, and we see now that after all these trials and so on, there is a bigger trial coming on the way. It's basically they were confronting between the sea and this big army from Egypt. So that's why I call it the trial became harder. And when I was reading this, one passage came to my mind, and this is written in the first letter of Peter, chapter 1, and because it resonated to me on what's going on in our days. We go to the first Peter, chapter 1, verse 3 to 9. It says the following: Blessed be the Elohim and Father of our Master Yahushua HaMashiach, who according to his great compassion has caused us to be born again to a living expectation through the resurrection of Yahushua Messiah from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled and unfading, having been kept in the heavens for you, who are protected by the power of Elohim through belief, through faith, through emunah in Hebrew, for a deliverance, a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. And this is something important that I will touch later in my comments, because here Peter is saying that the salvation will be revealed in the last days. And this is important because sometimes, especially in Christianism, it's being said that when we accept Jesus, we are being saved. But salvation is not being revealed according to the words of Peter at that moment. Salvation is going to be revealed in the second coming of Yahushua HaMashiach. So that's an important point to study in depth. But let's continue in the verse 6. In which you exalt, even though, and this is the connection to what I was saying, even though for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by manifold trials. You know, and let's keep in mind on what I was saying. Israel was in trials. All these plagues didn't touch them at the end, but they were seeing everything that Yahuwah was doing in Egypt. The Egyptians were treating them very bad before the plagues and before the deliverance of Yahuwah. So they were suffering trials. But now what they were facing before the parting of the Red Sea was the biggest trial of all. So I see and resonating again with what Peter is saying here is that we will receive many trials. But what he's saying here is in the verse 7, in order that the proving of your belief, much more precious than gold that perishes and proven by fire, might be found to result in praise and respect and esteem at the revelation of Yahushua HaMashiach. So basically, what are the trials? What are the objectives and the purpose of the trials? And we see in this amazing story of Israel that the trial was in order to test the belief, the emunah of Israel, in the same way that we are being trying in these last days with everything that's happening in the world. We are being from one test and one trial to the other. And this is increasing like the birth pains of a woman in labor. So this is exactly as the prophecies are saying. So the bottom line of what I want to say is that the purpose of this, and this is what we need to keep always in mind, is in order to be prepared for the salvation that Yahuwah will be manifest in the second coming of Yahushua HaMashiach. Is because he's testing our faith, he's testing our emunah. And you know, there's something in addition that I saw here that for me is really important. It's not directly connected, but somehow I think we can see the way that the unclean spirits and also the enemy is acting. And what I'm talking about, if we go to the book of Luke, chapter 11, verse 24 and 20 to 26. This is Yahushua HaMashiach speaking, and he said the following: when the unclean spirit goes out of a man, he goes through dry places, seeking rest. And finding none, he says, I shall return to my house from which I came. And when he comes, he finds it swept and decorated. Then he goes and takes with him 7 other spirits, more wicked than himself, and they enter and dwell there. And the last stay of that man becomes worse than the first. What is the connection that I see here to this passage of the portion? We see Pharaoh making a decision, and he released the people of Israel. He agreed to let the people go. But after that, he relented and he said, I will go back. In the same way that Yahushua is speaking about the clean spirit. So he came back in order to persecute the people of Israel, and he took more people the army of Egypt. In the same way that we see the unclean spirit saying, "Oh, the house is ready, is decorated. I will bring more unclean spirit with me in order to inhabit this place." So what's the secret here? Is that basically what I see is that the enemy and the clean spirit is acting in the same way that we see Pharaoh acting in this portion against the people of Israel. What's the main difference based on the word of Yahushua? That if that person, in this case, it could be the body of Mashiach, Israel, just to connect it to the portion, let the spirit enter in the state of that person, of the state of the assembly will be worse than the beginning. And this is really interesting, because what we see when we started reading, continue reading the verse 14, we see something really interesting in the book of Exodus. And it's totally connected to the passage of Yahushua HaMashiach talking about the clean spirit. If we go to the chapter 14 of Exodus, verse 11, is the people of Israel crying out because they saw this big army. But in the verse 11, they said the following, and they said to Moshe, "Did you take us away to die in the wilderness because there are no burial sites in Egypt? What is this you have done to us to bring us up out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we spoke to you in Egypt, saying, 'Leave us alone and let us serve the Egyptians'? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." So we see the people doubting. We see the people afraid. And we see the people in the same way that connected to the clean spirit of Yahushua was speaking about, almost opening the door and trying to go back to Egypt, remembering in the way that we're living in their past state. So, but what happened? And this is something important that we need to remind all the time, and I was sharing, I think, last week about this, is that we need to keep silent before Yahuwah, and this are the words of Moses in the verse 13, and we need to wait of the deliverance of Yahuwah. No matter that we are afraid because everything is falling down around us, we need to keep our confidence and our trust in Yahuwah. And we need to act according to that faith, no matter that we can be totally afraid, because this is normal, it's part of our emotions. This is what happened to Israel, it's what could happen to us. We need to keep strong and we need to stand in the rock that is Yahushua HaMashiach. And this is basically faith in action. And we see a lot of faith in action here in this passage. And actually, and I don't know, maybe Jake, you have the chance to read the book of Yasher on this. I remembered I heard many years ago a Jewish rabbi, talking about the story of what happened before the parting of the Red Sea. And I think in the book of Yasher is mentioning something about this. What they're saying, and I found it really interesting, that's why I want to share. They were saying that before the parting of the Red Sea, there are 4 groups that were formed, and they had 4 opinions, basically, in each one of those groups. The first group, when they saw this army of Egypt, they said, no, we need to fall down to the sea and we need to die, because it's better to die, jump into the sea, than being killed by the Egyptians.
Hello? Oh, Juan, you still there?
Uh-oh. I think looks like he locked up. Juan, can you hear us? If you can hear us, you are locked up.
Must have had that lightning strike happen we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, it could be.
Well, at least he wasn't in an embarrassing position when he froze up.
Yeah, that's a good look for him right there. That's a good that's a good profile picture, actually.
I was looking up in Jasher. I was trying to find the chapter he was talking about. Trying to find. I'm looking here in Jasher chapter 80 right now. Let me see here. 81.
Whoops. Looks like he just... Hang on a second. Everything kind of got wonky here because
Yeah.
Juan just dropped off.
Okay, so let's hear.
Yeah, I didn't see... well, I had posted chapter 80 a while back on Josher. But
Yeah,
I
I'm
didn't see
going through.
anything.
I'm trying to find. Well, I guess I mean I mean I could find this chapter in Jasher. We could read through and see if Juan will join back with us here.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So, if anybody in the chat remembers where in Jasher this portion of the crossing of the Red Sea is, put it in the chat real quick because I'm having trouble finding that particular instance.
In Josher?
Yeah, in Jasher.
It's got to be somewhere between 80 and 81, I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I did have one comment, in terms of something that happened last week and what our previous tour portion's topic was on, and I find it really interesting the timing of all this. But have you heard about the news? Of course, a lot of people have probably had it pop up on their phone at least once, but the whole GameStop, all the people challenging the stock market short positions.
Yeah, I've seen stuff, but I don't know I don't know anything about it. I've just seen people passing around stuff talking about it. But so, can you tell me what that's about? Like, I don't really.
Yeah. So let me set it up for you guys, and why I'm kind of bringing this up and why I think it's interesting is in our previous tour portion we had the spoiling of Egypt, and we had all of the Israelites go and ask of their Egyptian neighbors gold and silver, and it was in this way that Yah spoiled the Egyptians when they came out. And they had all that gold for, building the tabernacle and building all the, and a golden calf, unfortunately. But the thing I found interesting, just in the time frame, was we have had in just this past week another rendition of what I would consider a spoiling of the Egyptians, so to speak. And the way that this happened in this past week was there was this Reddit forum, which were all these people that were bouncing ideas on investing in stock and just the everyday layperson, free market type adventure capitalist, people want to put their spare cash into something. Well, this Reddit forum blew up, and they happened to all be focusing on shorted stocks. And what happened was you had all these everyday people buy into a stock that had been over 130% shorted by big institutions and hedge funds. And what happened was when they short it basically forces them to have to buy into the stock if the stock starts to go up, so that they negate the risk. But whenever all these people all of a sudden funneled all of their extra dollars right into this GameStop stock, it shot to the moon in terms of price, and there was this massive redistribution of wealth from the corporate world, the hedge fund, the big billionaire world, who were playing a rigged game of the stock market, and all of these everyday people that were part of this Reddit forum, they got a bunch of returns from this investment. And the reason I'm bringing this up is
that the Robinhood thing? Was that what it was?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the way people were buying it was through Robinhood, and of course, there's more drama coming out with them limiting people's ability. But the reason I wanted to point this out is it was almost like there was this a spoiling of Egypt, so to speak, in this instance, and it's really closely paralleled with this Torah portion we just read about the Israelites spoiling Egypt. And things like this happen, But I just found the timing interesting. But it made me ask the question, you know, if there is a greater Exodus, right? Is there going to be a greater spoiling of Egypt? And could it be, you know, in an instance like this, where how you know, the everyday person starts to call the corruption and the bluff of the current financial system, and they figure stuff out like this out, you know, the shorting of stocks and how it's, you know, a rigged game. And if everybody band together and invested, then, you know, there's a spoiling of Egypt, so to speak. So I wanted to mention that because I found that really, you know, kind of interesting just in terms of our Torah portion and the you know, the massive redistribution of wealth in our Torah portion and what happened this last week. Okay, so I found in Jasher the portion of okay, so here it is, Jasher chapter 81, and it says, I'm going to start in verse all right, let me see here.
Joshua 81, you said?
Yes, it's Jasher 81.
Oh, so it's the one I posted, actually. Okay.
And okay, so I'll start in verse 22, 81:22. And Pharaoh rose up and harnessed his chariot, and he ordered all the Egyptians to assemble. Not one man was left excepting the little ones and the women. And all the Egyptians went forth with Pharaoh to pursue the children of Israel. And the camp of Egypt was exceedingly large and heavy camp, about 1,000 men. 1,000 men. Is that a million? Is it? What is it?
Yeah.
100,000 is a million. So, okay. All right. And the whole of this camp went and pursued the children of Israel to bring them back to Egypt, and they reached them encamping by the Red Sea. And the children of Israel lifted up their eyes and beheld all the Egyptians pursuing them. And the children of Israel were greatly terrified at them. And the children of Israel cried to the Lord. And on account of the Egyptians, the children of Israel divided themselves into 4 divisions. And they were divided in their opinions, for they were afraid of the Egyptians, and Moses spoke to each of them. The first division was of the children of Reuben, Simeon, and Issachar. And they resolved to cast themselves into the sea, for they were exceedingly afraid of the Egyptians. And Moses said to them, Fear not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will effect this day for you. The second division was of the children of Zebulun, Benjamin, and Naphtali, and they resolved to go back to Egypt with the Egyptians. The third division was of the children of Judah and Joseph, and they resolved to go to meet the Egyptians and to fight with them. And I have so many comments I want to make, but I'll keep reading.
Yeah.
And Moses said to them, Stand in your place, for the Lord will fight for you. You shall remain silent. And the fourth division was of the children of Levi, Gad, and Asher, and they resolved to go into the midst of the Egyptians to confound them. And Moses said to them, Remain in your stations and fear not. Only call unto the Lord that he may save you out of their hands. Just real quick, I find, you know, some of these interesting. Like, it's almost like some of the patriarchal tendencies being passed down and characterized as the whole tribe, right? Like Judah was this, you know, burly guy we've talked about, you know, willing to go to war, and Joseph also, his son Ephraim, I think there was a little contention of strength between them. You know, it's so interesting how, you know, generational things are passed down and manifested in these large groups of people. Okay, so going on, verse 34. After this, Moses rose up from amidst the people, and he prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord God of the whole earth, save now thy people from whom thou didst bring forth from Egypt, and let not the Egyptians boast that power and might are theirs through it. And Moses did so, and he lifted up his rod upon the sea and divided it. And the waters of the sea were divided into 12 parts. And the children of Israel passed through on foot with shoes as a man would pass through a prepared road. And the Lord manifested to the children of Israel his wonders in Egypt and in the sea by the hand of Moses and Aaron. And when the children of Israel had entered the sea, the Egyptians came after them, and the waters of the sea resumed upon them, and they all sank in the water. And not one man was left excepting Pharaoh. This is one of those instances where, you know, I'm kind of questioning, you know, because the canonized text does seem to indicate that they all died, right?
Yeah.
So this is one of those instances. Let's, you know, do a little bit more research and see, you know, if this is a contradiction or not. But who gave thanks to the Lord, believed him, before the Lord did not cause him to perish at the time with the Egyptians. And the Lord, well, so apparently they're saying this Pharaoh went to Nineveh and reigned over it for a long time. So something more to research there. I've not really looked into that, but it does seem like outwardly just a little bit of a contradiction. But anyway, so this kind of leads us on to what I was going to talk about today, and was one of the primary reasons I did not have this chapter memorized, because I was actually studying something else. Verse 43 here in Jasher says, "Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, on the day when the Lord caused the Egyptians to fall before them, and all Israel sang in concert, saying, I will sing to the Lord, for he is greatly exalted, the horse and his rider he is cast into the sea. Behold, it is written in the book of the law of God." Oh, man. So this is what I really wanted to focus on for today's Torah portion, and what I was looking into and what I was studying. But guys, the Song of Moses, and just the premise and the principle of the worship of the Most High, is a incredibly powerful tool on the belt of believers. And we get this amazing example of all the children of Israel as they came out of Egypt, sing this wonderful, just glorious song, right, of how Yah has helped them triumph over the Egyptians, and just this song of delivery. And oh man, it's just awesome. You know what it reminds me of is one of my wife and I's favorite movies is the Prince of Egypt that DreamWorks put out. Mm-hmm. And in that movie, you know, they had that similar scene, right? I think the big Song of Moses in that song was "When You Believe" by Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston, right? they just made their own version. But you know, this song of the people that they sang when they came out of Egypt is something that is mentioned later on in the book of Revelation, chapter 15. And I'll start reading at the very beginning of chapter 15 of Revelation. It says, "And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels holding the last 7 plagues, or 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God." Now, just a reminder, remember the children of Israel only had to deal with the first 3 plagues there in the land of Goshen, but it does say that after that third plague, that plagues weren't falling on the children of Israel there in Goshen as long as they were obeying what they were told by Moses. So it's interesting that there's 7, last plagues. That's another parallel we have with the Exodus account. Continuing on, "And I saw it as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast and over his image and over his mark and over the number of his name stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God." All right, we're about to get musical here. "And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works. Yahuwah God Almighty, just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest." So, man, this is a big call out here to this portion that we're reading through, Beshalach and the Song of Moses. Now, there are actually 2 songs attributed to Moses in the Torah. The song that's found in Deuteronomy is a little bit more depressing.
It's a lot more depressing. It's a lot more depressing, yeah.
And this is a significant thing, and it shows us that the people in the book of Revelation, they were singing this Song of Moses that is found here in Exodus. And first of all, if all of that stuff is not important for us, and whatever, let's just not worry about it, then why is it that they know the Song of Moses and they're singing the Song of Moses along with the Song of the Lamb? And so, bringing this topic up, maybe we should read through the Song of Moses. I'm going to be tempted to sing-song it through, but
do it. Do it.
But let's go through and find out. You can't
tease us like that, dude.
Oh man. Okay, I'll give it a shot. If it gets terrible, we'll just keep. Okay. And so the Song of Moses is in chapter 15 of Exodus, and it goes like this: "Then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to the Lord, saying," here we go, "I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. Yahuwah is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him, the Father's God, and I will exalt him. Yahuwah is a man of war, Yahuwah is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host he cast into the sea, and his chosen officers were sunk in the Red Sea. The floods covered them, and they went down in the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Yahuwah, glorious in power. Your right hand, O Yahuwah, shatters the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you overthrow your adversaries. You send out your fury, it consumes them like stubble. At the blast of your nostrils, the waters pile up. The flood stood up in a heap. The deeps congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake. I'll divide the spoil, my desire shall have its fill of them. I'll draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. You blew your wind, and the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Yahuwah, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glorious deeds, doing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. You led in your steadfast love the people whom you have redeemed. You have guided them by your strength to your holy abode. The people have heard, they tremble. Pangs have seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Now are the chiefs of Edom dismayed. Trembling seizes the leaders of Moab. All the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. Terror and dread fall upon them. Because of the greatness of your arm, they are still as stone. Still your people, O Yahuwah, pass by, till the people pass by whom you have purchased. You will bring them in and plant them on your own mountain, the place, O Lord, you have made for your abode, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have established. The Lord will reign forever and ever. For when the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and his horsemen went into the sea, the Lord brought back the waters of the sea upon them. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea. Then Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went after her with tambourines and dancing. And Miriam sang to them, Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. Oh, man. So, this Song of Moses
Bravo.
is just...
Sorry, my microphone's muted. Yay! need some
Thanks,
music behind it.
Yeah, we'll have to work on a little melody for that.
Yeah.
But, this is such a powerful moment and such an encouragement on the back end of all of these terrible plagues that are falling on the world. And, this is reminiscent of future terrible plagues that are going to fall into the world. But think about the amazing moment of those who have held strong and did not give up on the faith, who ran the good race to the end. This is all of those encouragements and these wonderful promises that we see in those first 3 chapters of the book of Revelation given to the churches and to those who overcome in the name of the Messiah. And maybe that's part of the Song of the Lamb, and maybe we can talk about what is the Song of the Lamb, because we have a pretty clear Song of Moses template, but do you have any examples of maybe a sing-songy example of the Song of the Lamb, or is that just something that is it a spiritualized, they understand the gospel, they understand the redemption of the Messiah, or is there an actual Song of the Lamb? I wonder.
Oh, well, it's a Chris Tomlin, Matt Redman song, didn't you know?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at is, at least here with the Song of Moses, we have a template we can, work through.
I'm not aware of any biblical one. Maybe something that becomes an impromptu song that comes up in the tribulation period, and just becomes a greatest hits at that time. I'm not aware of a biblical version of it.
Yeah, it's this is really important stuff, because it does seem to say that it's the people that, it says the servants of God and Those who, hold on, Revelation 15, it was the people that overcome. And it was the hold on. It was all right. Sorry, I'm missing my place here. But anyways,
15:3. 15:3.
Sorry, what verse?
15:3. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, "Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints."
Yeah. I was looking for the verse that was characterizing who it is that is singing this, because it's
yeah, almost like, let's see. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, which would be the top of the firmament, probably. And
so them that had gotten, this is what I was looking for.
over the
Sorry,
beast.
them that had gotten victory over the beast is what I was trying to characterize here. So, if you want to be one of these people that does not bow to the beast and does not worship his image, and does not accept his mark or the number of his name, you want to be these people that know the song of Moses, and know the song of the Lamb.
Start learning it now, right?
Exactly, because of course, I'm the reason I was pointing this out is because inversely, the opposite would be true, right? Like, if they had given in to the beast and worshipped his image and taken the mark, then they wouldn't be singing the songs, right? So what I wanted to point out with this whole topic of worship, and why I think it's really important for today's world, and just understanding spiritually the impact and strength of worship is, I wanted to read this interesting account in 2 Chronicles, verses. I'm going to start in verse 19. So this is 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verses 19, and this is there's a big war, a battle coming up to challenge King Jehoshaphat, and in verse 19 starts off, "And the Levites, the children of the Kohathites, and of the children of the Korites, stood up to praise Yahuwah God of Israel with a loud voice on high. And they rose early in the morning and went forth into the wilderness of Tekoa. And as they went forth, Jehoshaphat stood and said, Hear me, O Judah, and ye inhabitants of Jerusalem. Believe in Yahuwah your God, so shall ye be established. Believe his prophets, so you shall prosper." If that's not a message for these these days we're living in, then I don't know what is. But
right.
And it continues on. "And when he had consulted with the people, he appointed singers unto the Lord, that should praise the beauty of his holiness as they went out before the army, and to say, Praise Yahuwah, for his mercy endureth forever. And when they began to sing, to praise, Yahuwah set ambushments against the children of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, which were come against Judah, and they were smitten. And the children of Ammon and Moab stood up against the inhabitants of Mount Seir, utterly to slay and destroy them. And when they had made an end of the inhabitants of Seir, everyone helped to destroy another." And so, I just wanted to point out, how did they start this battle that they were, headed into? He sent the worshipers out front. And if we don't have a ton of examples throughout the scriptures of the trumpets and the harps and the singers all going out before and causing a ruckus in the enemy, there's multiple examples of battles that were not even fought because they had some mighty singers of Yahweh, Yahuwah, and man, that's so cool.
Think of that though. Like, wow. Like, let's put this in practical terms. You're in an army. There's a horrible enemy all around you, and you're the guy going out with a trumpet. You know what I mean? I mean, there was a time I served in the military during the Clinton administration, and he just decimated the military. I mean, just gutted it and was closing bases, and there was no money for, like, we were cannibalizing helicopters. If one helicopter went down for something minor, we didn't have a part for it. So, it's called red Xing. You red X it, whatever the problem was, and it just sits there. And then another helicopter goes down with something major, well, like a transmission or something. Well, we couldn't get a transmission for it, so we had to take the transmission out of the other one that maybe just needed a tail light. How much does a tail light cost, right? But we had no money, in the budget, so we had to cannibalize that helicopter. And then one time I was sent out on the flight line. We several of us were assigned guard duty, and they issued us our M16s, but no ammo. So we're like, what are we supposed to do with this, right? Throw it at them, So this just reminds me that it's like, and in the military, you want to be as equipped as you possibly can with weapons of warfare, but it doesn't occur to you, at least it doesn't occur to me, that a trumpet or a harp or a flute is a weapon of warfare that I'd be comfortable bringing to the battlefield, and yet we see that it's the Levites that are the warriors and they're the worshipers, and so they had to have some serious faith. I mean, who knows the different enemies that they're going up against, some of which were giants, I would contend, and they're walking out on the battlefield not with swords and shields and bows and arrows, but with harps and trumpets and flutes. Wow, dude, like that would have to take a significant amount of faith on their part to be willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, this topic of music is really starting to like ding the bell, in my mind. Is it is so powerful, the medium of praise and worship and music. Just think about the enemy hearing the praises of the Most High from afar, right? And how they're like, our Elohim squishes guys like you, and we're coming for you, and they're hearing this like being echoed across the mountains or whatever. This is something that's not just an Old Testament concept, guys. This is something that I think is very important for believers today. This is Acts 16:25, about midnight. Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. And guess what? A little bit of commotion happens, and miraculous things start to come about. And this principle of praising, this is a always keep a joyful song in your heart, right? That's I forget which Psalms it was, but the process of praising is something that has really not been expounded upon much. And my father-in-law, Carl Tishner, he actually did a teaching. If you guys are interested in checking it out, it's the all of the different words of worship, and he breaks down what each different word of worship means in the physical action sense of it. And what we come to learn, what I've come to discover after having him share that, we did a show several years ago, but is that there are so many different types of worship. It's mind-blowing, and in our Bibles today, all of those words are translated to the boring word worship. And just to walk you through some of the ones just off the top of my head that he detailed, and I'll find that link to share for you guys in case you're interested. But some of the examples were, there's a word for worship that literally means laying flat on your face on the ground. There's a word for worship that means to lift up your hands pointed this direction. There's a word for worship that means to worship with your hands in a receiving fashion. There's a word for worship that means to hit the high note. That there's literally a word for worship.
The striper note.
Striper. But all of these different worship things that people can do, there's different ways to worship, singing, just the way that you're, praying, any of that. But it's all tools on the tool belt, and I think it's really important because we definitely see that the people of the Most High are a sing-songy bunch, and we shouldn't be afraid to belt out, the good news. But this does tie back into our Haftorah portion as well, because not only do we go through the Song of Moses here in Exodus 15, but in the Haftorah portion, we also have the Song of
Deborah.
Yeah. So this is
She's
a
like
sing-songy Torah portion.
She's Sheena, man. She's like, whoa. She drives a tent peg through the guy's head into the ground, and then it says, and he died. Oh, duh. No kidding.
Yeah. So, I just, I really wanted to focus on this musical aspect of our tour portion this week. Let me read through this song of Deborah and Barak. It's here in Judges chapter 5, verse 1. Then sang Deborah and Barak, the son of Abinoam, on that day, that the leaders took the lead in Israel, that the people offered themselves willingly. Bless Yahuwah. No, I'm doing this way bad. Okay, I was trying to. Okay. Hear, O kings, give ear, O princes, to the Lord I will sing. I will make melody to Yahuwah, the God of Israel. Yahuwah, you went out from Seir. When you marched from the region of Edom, the earth trembled and the heavens dropped. Yes, the clouds dropped water. The mountains quaked before Yahuwah, even Sinai before Yahuwah, the God of Israel. In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were abandoned. Travelers kept to the byways. The villagers ceased in Israel. They ceased to be until I arose. I, Deborah, arose as a mother in Israel. When new gods were chosen, when war was in the gates, was shield or spear to be seen among 40,000 in Israel. My heart goes out to the commanders of Israel who offered themselves willingly among the people. Bless the Lord. Tell of it, you who ride on white donkeys, you who sit on rich carpets, and you who walk by the way, to the sound of musicians at the watering places, where they repeat the righteous triumphs of Yahuwah, the righteous triumphs of his villagers in Israel. Then down to the gates marched the people of Yahuwah. Awake, awake, Deborah, awake, awake, break out in song. Arise, Barak, lead away your captives, O son Abinoam. Then down marched the remnant of the noble. The people of Yahuwah marched down for me against the mighty. From Ephraim, their root, they marched down into the valley. Following you, Benjamin, and your kinsmen. From Machir marched down the commanders, and from Zebulun rose those who bear the lieutenant's staff. The princes of Issachar came with Deborah, and Issachar faithful to Barak. Under the valley they rushed at his heels. Among the clans of Reuben they were great searchings of heart. Why did you sit still among the sheepfolds, and hear the whistling for the flocks? Among the clans of Reuben they were great searchings of heart. Gilead stayed beyond the Jordan, and Dan, why did he stay with the ships? Asher sat still at the coast of the sea, staying by his landings. Zebulun is a people who risked their lives to death. Naphtali too, in the heights of the field. The king came, they fought the kings of Canaan. At Tanakh, by the waters of Megiddo, they got no spoils of silver. From heaven the stars fought, and from their courses they fought against Sisera. The torrent of Kishon kept them away, and the ancient torrent, the torrent Kishon, marched on my soul with might. Then aloud beat the horses' hoofs with the galloping of his steeds. Curse Meroz, says the angel of Yahuwah. Curse its inhabitants thoroughly, because they did not come to the help of Yahuwah, to the help of Yahuwah against the mighty. Most blessed of women be Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, a tent-dwelling woman, most blessed. This must have been a musical. I can't tell where the song ends and where the the scriptures begin. Oh man, it keeps going on. There seems like they put the whole album here or something. All right, she sent her hand to the tent peg and her right hand to the workman's mallet. She struck Sisera. She crushed his head. She shattered and pierced his temple. This does seem formatted more like a song. Between her feet, he sank. This is like I don't know. This is like a rock song. Between her feet, she sank. He fell. He lay still. Between her feet, he sank. He fell. Where he sank, there he fell. Dead. All right. Out of the window, she peered. The mother of Sisera wailed through the lattice. Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why tarry the hoofbeats of his chariots? Her wisest princess says, answer. Indeed, she answers herself. Have they not found and divided the spoil, a womb or two for every man? Spoil of dyed materials for Sisera. Spoil of dyed materials embroidered. 2 pieces of dyed work embroidered for the neck as spoil. So may all your enemies perish, O Yahuwah. But as your friends be like the sun as he rises in his might. And the land had rest for 40 years. So, there we go. Deborah also falling in line, sing-songing it away. I really couldn't tell, which part was a description and which part was the song, like I said. But
have you seen that guy? There's a guy. It just made me laugh. There's a guy on YouTube. His name is Andre Antunes. Have you ever seen him? He usually takes Kenneth Copeland messages and turns them into heavy metal songs.
Oh, really? Wow, that sounds pretty. I'll have to check that
Let me
out.
see.
No, I hadn't-
I'll show you
I hadn't
just
seen
an example of it.
Okay,
Commercially
okay.
insured patients may pay
It's
as
got
low
a
as
commercial here.
$5 for
But he does it
Brilinta.
for a
Visit
lot of. He does it for
Brilinta.com
political
to learn
people and
more.
stuff too. But he seems to really focus on Kenneth Copeland a lot. He usually starts off with like,
In the name of Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. I execute judgment on you, COVID-19. I execute judgment on you, Satan. You destroyer. You killer. You get out. You break your power. You get off this nation. I demand judgment on you. I demand a vaccination to come immediately. Yes.
he starts daydreaming,
exercise
and then he
judgment,
kicks into.
because
The,
we
In
have.
the name of Jesus.
Oh, thank you.
Standing in the office of the prophet of God, I execute judgment on you, COVID-19. I execute judgment on you, Satan. You destroyer. You killer. You get out. You break your power. You get off this nation. I demand judgment on you. I demand a vaccine.
he just goes on. I'll spare everybody, but I've spent like half a day watching this guy sometimes because it's hilarious what he. But it's cool, man. It's kind of like he takes his, whatever a political speaker. Or he tends to focus on Kenneth Copeland a lot, but he turns them into metal songs. So I guess if there's somebody out there, maybe he can take and the Deborah one is probably prime for that, for heavy metal. Literally, pardon the pun, right?
Oh man. Oh yeah. So yeah, just
You never know what you're gonna
songs.
get here. So sorry.
That's awesome. Yeah, hey man, I think there's a lot about music that cuts through the natural barriers people put up. Whenever you look at the music industry itself, they can sing about some terrible stuff, but as long as it sounds great, people don't mind. In terms of preaching, people automatically, if you're just preaching at somebody or you're just telling them, hey, believe this or think this way, there's a natural defense mechanism that goes up. And they start to have to critically analyze what you're saying. What do I compare this to the doctrines I know? What's my opinion? Do I trust them? But songs and music has this powerful ability to pierce straight to the heart of mankind, pierce through their intellectual ability and to relay a message directly to the heart. And I think it's a powerful tool that unfortunately the churches drop the ball on some. I kind of get disenfranchised with a lot of modern music, Christian music. A little disappointed, but that's when you have to be like, well, if you don't like what's out there now, why don't you go and make something better? If you can't complain otherwise. Right?
Well, that's what it's come down to, and I think that's part of the reason why I may have posted the a Book of Eli in one of it was a 2013 or 14. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but I was I was a missionary at the time, and it was one of the head of the missions organization that told me, knowing that I'm into filmmaking and stuff, this person said, Rob, you got to go see this Book of Eli movie. And I'm like, okay. So I took my 16-year-old nephew with me, and I didn't have any idea what I was getting into, and so for like the first 30 minutes of the movie, I'm wondering, did I hear him wrong? Did I come to the wrong movie? Because it's a very violent and F-bombs and I'm not a prude by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm thinking this missionary guy told me to go see this movie, and I got my 16-year-old nephew here. I'm like, what am I getting into? But then as the movie progressed and you start to see what Denzel Washington's character is about and the story as it unfolds, man, I got to tell you, by the end of the movie, like my jaw was on the floor. I'm like, did I just see what I thought I just saw, And I kid you not, my 16-year-old nephew, without any prompting from me, turns to me and says, man, this movie makes me want to read my Bible more. And I'm like, what? And he took his Bible to his secular high school the next day. And my niece, who was about the same age, had the same reaction to that film and got other friends of hers to watch it with her, And I'm going, I'm not necessarily advocating for lots of violence and blood and guts and swearing and stuff like that, but they captured something in the method. That's what I'm focused on, the methodology by which they did this. Like, I'm like, that's what we've got to capture that if we're going to be culturally relevant, whether it's with music or with any form of media, really. And if this last year didn't show you how powerful media is in influencing culture, I don't know what will. I mean, 2020 and now 2021 are literally the poster childs for the power of media to influence the masses. And we're missing it in the Christian, because we say, oh, we're going to make a Christian movie, and the world goes, wow, isn't that cool? They have their own movie. They don't go see it, and the other problem that we have is that we never have any money to do anything with it. Christian, somebody was just posting, because I posted on Facebook that Book of Eli, and somebody else I know who's really into the same kind of thing, reaching the world with media. He's like, yeah, but Christians don't seem to get it. They throw all the money at the world. We see in this Torah portion what happens. The world gave the money to the righteous. The wealth of the wicked stored up for the righteous. It's not, Sheila laments it. I lament it all the time. It's like there's so much garbage out there on Netflix and everything. We cancel Netflix, but, all these media platforms just full of garbage. But it's like the world says, hey, I need, $50 million to make garbage. Here you go. There it is. Like money falls out of the sky for the world to make garbage that has an influence on people. It's wickedness. It's like, come on, body of Christ, we've got to wake up, and we've got to stop giving the money that we, contribute to them and put it into Christian media so that we can have the kind of influence on the world that we need to have. Anyway, I get on my soapbox on that all the time, but something's got to change.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the Book of Eli is a great example, and you were like, they're dropping bombs, F-bombs and cussing, and is this the right movie? Well, it always makes me wonder, if you took a videographer team, right, and took them back in time and took them to some of the events in the Bible,
right,
and you documented the scriptures as written,
right?
People today, Christians today would think it's, turn it off. It's
yeah, you couldn't make the Bible. Like, I mean, you want to talk about, I mean, it's got everything in there. Sex, violence, lots of violence. I mean, it's like the TV series Vikings. I mean, lots of throughout the Old Testament, Judges and everything. And it's like, man, I mean, there's so much of that in the Bible, but it's part of reality. It's part of life. Now I think there's a way to show it without showing it.
Yeah.
Maybe a PG-13 way of producing it. But I will say this. I have to watch my own tongue. I grew up in New England. The F word is it's an adjective. I've told this story before where I had been a missionary for about 5 years, and I went back to Massachusetts to visit some friends. A friend of mine got honored. His business got honored for Business of the Year, and I was one of the founders that helped him, build that business. So he invited me up there for it. And I hadn't seen these guys in a few years. I've been on the mission field, and I get there, and they're like, "Hey, Bob, what have you been up to?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm a missionary now. I'm traveling the world doing this." And they're like, "Wow, no F&S, man. That's effing awesome, dude." And I'm like, because I've been this Christian bubble, and then it occurred to me, it's like, these guys don't even know what they just said. They're not cursing you. They've just, it's been adopted as part of the vocabulary it's an adjective for everything, and same thing in the military. And so, growing up with over 30 years of that in my life, look, I'm just confessing, that's one of the reasons why I have to wear C-seats, because it becomes an issue. But to be fair, we're the only ones thinking about that. A Christian goes to see Book of Eli, and they're like, "Oh, it's too many F-bombs." The world goes to see it; they don't even hear it. It doesn't. It's like, hello, they don't even hear it. We're the only ones flipping out about it. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about I think the whole analogy of media and influencing the world can be tied to the very examples of the Messiah's ministry, in the New Testament, is he wasn't just straight flopping out the facts for people and just just preaching at them. He was telling them truths in parables, and it's almost like he was kind of giving us an insight into the best way to reach the masses that don't get it yet, right? Because, like I was saying, whenever you just are preaching at somebody, they automatically have these defense mechanisms come up.
Right.
But whenever you tell somebody a story, or whenever you tell somebody, you sing them a song,
Bingo.
it opens the door for them to understand the underlying truths that really cut to the heart of the matter, because it gives them practical examples. It gives them all sorts of things that help them understand a deeper relay of information, right? And I think this is kind of comes back over to this music topic, and our Creator is the Creator, right? He's the one who gives inspiration to who He will, and unfortunately, I think sometimes believers we bury our talents, and then the other side, because they have other ulterior motives, they grab hold of their talents that are also God-given, and they use them for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And
there's you talk about breaking down barriers with music and whatnot. One time I was working on as a helicopter mechanic. Whenever you did work, you'd have to had your work would be signed off by a technical inspector. So the mechanic would do the job, he'd sign off on it, then you go to the TI, technical inspector, and he'd come and he'd take a look at it, make sure the tolerance is right and everything's buttoned up the way it's supposed to be, and then he would sign it off. Well, this one time the TI came in there and I was jamming in the hangar to Petra. And there was a song, I think it was on their Beyond Belief album, I think, called Seen and Not Heard. Seen and Not Heard. Sometimes God's people should be seen and not heard is the chorus of it, but just and it sounds just like a Kiss song. So so Norm comes in and he's like, and it's just the music's just getting started and he thinks it's a Kiss song, right? He's like, oh man, I love this song. I'm like, yeah, me too. Yeah. And then of course as the lyrics start going, he's like, what is this? But it was an opportunity to have a conversation, and what was that song about? Sometimes God's people should be seen and not heard. I mean, we should, we do a lot of talking, but we should walk the walk, kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that Petra song. We are strangers.
Oh yeah.
We are aliens.
That's old Petra. That's Greg X Volt's Petra. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a vinyl album that had that song on it, passed down to me from my parents. Well, so that was the main thing I really wanted to focus on. It was just, this really did seem to be the Torah portion of triumph and singing praises to the Most High after these difficult times. Uh-huh. And keep in mind, these people that sing this Song of Moses as they exit the land, and all the people, and Miriam grabs the tambourine and praises. It wasn't long after that, after all of these declarations of how mighty and amazing He is, that they forgot, and they fell straight back into, their own doubts and led them into the sin of the golden calf. Mm-hmm. And so, I think keeping this mindset of worship constantly and keeping the joyful song in your heart of how the Most High is helping you personally in your life triumph over whatever is we got to keep mindful of those things, because once they forget what Yah has done for them, that's when it's easier to fall into sin. And I find this a personal application thing is it's oftentimes after the big blessings come that the greatest falls follow, right? Mm-hmm. It's after you get comfortable, you're like, wow, wow, God's done all this amazing stuff. You're not looking for the blessing anymore. You're not looking to continue on, and that's when you can get tempted the most. And so as long as we keep that mindset of focusing on what he's done and being grateful all the time, we'll be less likely to forget what he's done for us.
I wonder if anybody's ever taken the challenge of trying to put the whole Bible to music. In oral tradition, that's usually the way it was done. In numerous different cultures, they would take whatever their historical narrative was that they wanted to pass down, and they would turn it into a song. And it become, these are the kind of things that, look, you can play any 80s song that was on the radio when I grew up, and I will instantly recall it. Like I'm an 80s junkie, right? So put on 80s, and usually when I get a rental car or something, if I'm out traveling around, that's the first thing I do is see if they got XM radio and they got 80s on 8 or whatever, and I'll turn it on there, and I know every song. I mean, there's got to be thousands of songs that I know verbatim by the music. Like, what if we could do that? If we could commit to memory. I mean, think about it. How many songs do you know by heart? Right? As soon as it comes on, you know every line.
Yeah.
If we could actually, I mean, I guess that explains the Psalms, for one thing. David was singing those things, but I just wonder if anybody's ever taken to the challenge to doing that. And if you do it, please don't just do it to, no offense to pianos or anything like that, but like that was the thing, going to Baptist church that I went to, piano music, I'm like, oh God, I can't deal with it. I mean, the older generation's fine, that's your thing or whatever, but like I need to move. Like I need something that gets my self going. I don't want to go to sleep here.
And if you do go by piano music, put some synths on there.
Put something in there to put a beat in there or something. In fact, when I was in the military and when I went to flight school, I applied myself in high school, but I usually didn't do my homework. I never did my homework, because my argument was, why do I need to do homework? I was acing the test. I was getting A's and B's on my tests. So the purpose of homework is supposedly to help solidify whatever you learned in class so that you could do well on your test. And I'm like, I'm already doing well on the test, so what do I need to do my homework for? So I was constantly, if I got a B, it's because they marked 10 points off my score because I didn't do my homework, But because of that, I didn't really develop good study habits. So when I went to flight school, and the first week we were there, they marched us down to this hangar, and they give us a footlocker full of books, a big footlocker full of manuals, and this was going to be our curriculum for 4 months. And I'm looking at these manuals, it's biomedical, it's everything, aerodynamics, the principles of flight and avionics and weather and how the eye works and all kinds of stuff, in there. And I'm looking at this footlocker full of books, and I'm thinking, I've never read this much in my entire life. Never mind, in 4 months, we're going to go through this. So the only way I got through flight school, and I actually ended up graduating top of my class, but the way I did it was I had some movie soundtracks on audio cassette that I had with me. And so I would literally read my notes to the Wrath of Khan soundtrack, Star Trek II soundtrack, and record myself reading my notes to the Wrath of Khan music, and then I would listen back the Wrath of Khan music with my notes, and then I would just listen to the Wrath of Khan music, and I would have instant recall of my notes, like the same way you do with the song. That's the only way I got through flight school, is like I'm going to make my notes into music because I learn and retain well with music. And so maybe that's maybe there's something supernatural to it that embeds a concept into you, into your mind, into your heart, into your being, driven there by music. I mean, certainly Satan has been using it to his advantage, and I always say you don't make counterfeit $30 bills, right? You make counterfeit $100 bills. You only counterfeit something that's real. So if secular music is the counterfeit to what is real, we're missing it. I mean, there's some, I think, that get it, and I mentioned like Chris Tomlin and Matt Redman earlier, and the Passion CDs that came out a few number of years ago. They came out. Have you ever listened to the Passion, where they took like they went on tour? It was like Matt Redman, Chris Tomlin, Charlie
I
something.
may have. I'm not sure.
Charlie Hall, I think. Anyway, these were like they were individual praise and worship musicians. They had their own solo careers, but they would come together and do like sort of like this Woodstock kind of concert on campuses. I think they were going to colleges and stuff like that. They're huge, just massive.
You know what? I think I might actually have seen that in the Philippines. If
Oh,
they
you probably did.
I did go to a big kind of conglomerate concert, Christian concert there in the Philippines when I was a kid. So
Yeah, and
I may have heard that.
you know, back in the '80s and stuff, I grew up with the Petras and the Stripers and Holy Soldier and you know all these Christian alternative hair bands, metal bands and whatnot. I liked all that, and those were Christian themed songs that talked about you know biblical living and stuff like that, and sometimes biblical themes. But differentiated that type of music, which I still enjoy, with the music that the Passion groups were doing. They were sort of doing a return to Davidic style praise and worship music, and I enjoyed sort of the headbanging, you know, excitement of the Striper Petra type music, but there was a difference in that to what I was gaining from the let's say the Passion or like the stuff by Jeremy Camp, who you know he was going through a crucible in his life about the same time I was, you know, back in 2001 2002, and he was writing from the you know his music was very much like the Psalms, from the anguish of his heart he was writing his music, really as a cry, as an appeal to Father. Help me, I'm hurting here, and praise you, thank you for what you're doing, you know, that kind of vibe. And I think that was very powerful at the time. And I have to think that it was that season from, I want to say from about 2000, 2001 until about 2009, 2010, by that 10-year time period of that return to Davidic praise and worship. It says Yahuwah inhabits the praises of his people. That as so many Christians especially were singing that, you know, the Petra stuff is great, you're just singing, you're kind of singing to yourself or whatever. The other music is different. You're singing to him. You're singing praise directly to him. That I have to believe that was part of what brought about what I call now the Ephraim awakening. That there was just an explosion after 10 years of that. There was this explosion of that map that I showed at the beginning of the broadcast. People all over the world returning to, as it says above us, right, you know, right above us, getting back to basics. Here, so you know, where do we go from here? I mean, I suppose we continue that type of music, but I mean, if we're going into a greater exodus, if we're going into a tribulation period, the armies of God, as we pointed out earlier, were led by the praisers. Like, wow, that's you know, I constantly find myself, especially in today's geopolitical climate, in the prepper mode, you know, right? Wanting to gear up and prepare for battle if need be, you know, if it's coming to my door, you know, where really I should be praising, which is completely counterintuitive to how I'm wired. That's not how, you know. So I'm this virtual house church as usual is preaching to me right now about like, okay, what I need.
Yeah, this music topic, man, I've been really kind of worked up on it for the past couple months. When we went out to Missouri, I was working out with some guys out there, and I connected with Adam Fink, and he wanted to work on some music, and we actually put together a song. We haven't put it out yet, but it's called "The Seed of Abraham," and
cool.
I worked up some lyrics for it for this same reason, because we're like putting our heads together. We're like, all right, well, you know, music is really falling short in the Christian world today, and so how do we present the Torah observant message in a post-Christian world where people are all disenfranchised at Christians because they're they're tired of the hypocrisy and the whole thing, and so this is a project of music that I think I want to encourage anybody out there, if you have a musical talent and ability, this is really needed right now. It's really needed for the warriors to stand up and sing of the mighty triumphs of the Most High. And you know, I think just you know, in terms of impact, you know, I always liked how different movements through history seem to be kind of backed up by I guess music. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is kind of like the like reggae music, right? They were very political in their music, but their music characterized kind of the movement of people, you know, challenging, you know, the oppression in their government there. And in the same way, you know, whenever people feel very passionately about truths, shouldn't those truths, you know, be presented in this, you know, package of music? And I think, you know, there's a big void there that a lot of people could benefit from. Let me try something real quick. I think I might want to share this little song with you guys. Let me see if you can hear this.
If we have a problem, you can just send me the link and I can play it over here.
Awesome. Well, I don't. This is not out online anywhere or anything like
okay.
that.
All right.
Let me see here. So,
somebody in the chat room was asking, no Keith Green. Yeah, I liked Keith Green. I'm just more of a metalhead, I guess. You know, I'm like, I gotta get my head banging. I don't know. You know, everybody's got their own style of music that they like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. All right, I'm trying to pull it up for you guys so I can share it because I think you might like this. But like going into this conversation, I wasn't planning to do this, by the way. I was just like, it just seems like
that you're working on.
Yeah, no, yeah, this is a song. Adam sent me over this guitar piece, and I did the lyrics and the song for it.
Nice.
And let me. Okay, I know where it is. Here we go. Bear with me, one moment, everyone. Here we go. Okay, so can you hear this?
No.
Okay, can't hear that.
Are you running through a mixer?
Yes.
You might change your computer settings, your sound settings to whatever is it a USB mixer?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do another reroute thing here. While I get this set up, do you want to maybe share you know, any your other thoughts on the tour portion?
You know, actually, let me switch cameras here. You know, the workbooks have a lot of room for you to take notes and highlight and stuff. And I was just going through the notes that I did, you know, over the last few years on this portion. I had a whole lot of this one highlighted and underlined and notes and stuff like that. And in chapter 13, I'll just kind of go through my notes while you're going through that. But in chapter 13, I was where it talks about and it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go that God led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. Because if you look at the path that they took at the Exodus, they didn't go to the direct route. It would have been just go like northeast. They headed almost directly east, but he had them do that because he said, although it was near, but for God said, lest peradventure the people repent when they see war and they return to Egypt. Like he didn't want them immediately encountering giants and like freaking out and like running right back, you know. So you know, I made a note. The Philistines must have been very powerful. I said, note also 1 Corinthians 10:13 through and 14. Which what is that? 1 Corinthians. That seems like that's these things happen to them. I think 1 Corinthians. Let me look it up. Right. 1 Corinthians 10. 13, 14. 1 Corinthians 10, 13 and 14. But we will not boast of things without our measure, but according to the measure of the rule which God hath distributed to us, a measure to reach even unto you. For we stretch not ourselves beyond our measure, as though we reached not unto you, for we are come as far as to you, also preaching the gospel. So basically, I guess it's, he's not going to give us more than we can handle. Like, knowing, especially, these guys were probably malnourished slaves, not quite ready to go into full battle here. So, I think the concept that I was going for when I was taking these notes must have been like he knows what you're able to handle. I also made a note that Egypt fell when Joseph's bones were removed from the land. So the land was blessed so long as Joseph was there, but as soon as they took the bones of Joseph out, it all fell apart. And chapter 14 says, "Speak unto the children of Israel that they turn and encamp before Pihahiroth, between Migdal and the sea, over against Baal Zephon," which means Lord of the North. Not quite sure what I was going at there. In chapter 14, verse 10, Yeshua won't come until Israel cries, Melech Bo, come King. That's what they were. The children of Israel cried unto the Lord. They were crying, Melech Bo, come King. Then they are complaining, and I wrote, that's heartbreaking, but we'd probably do the same thing. I mean, if you consider, okay, yeah, we're brought out, but now it's hot out here. There's no food. There's no water. We're going to die out here in the wilderness of starvation. I can see reasonable justification for their murmuring, especially if you consider there's like 2 million of them, and they're looking around at nothing but desert, and like, we're all going to die out here, right? Yeshua of Yahuwah is... and there's a Aleph Tav there too. I've got Aleph Tav notes all over this for Exodus 14, verse 13. And Moses said unto the people, "Fear ye not, stand still and see the Aleph Tav, salvation of the Lord." So the Aleph Tav appears right before salvation, and we know the word salvation is Yeshua in Hebrew. So it's fear not. Stand still and see the Aleph Tav Yeshua of Yahuwah. That's pretty powerful, right there.
Oh yeah.
In Exodus 14:13, and there's a few of these there. Aleph Tav shows up again in Exodus 14:26 and 27. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, "Stretch out thine Aleph Tav hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen." And Moses stretched forth his Aleph Tav hand over the sea. So it's almost like when Yeshua said, in Greek, it's Alpha and Omega. So when he says, "I'm the Alpha and Omega," he's saying, "I am the Aleph and Tav." So what I'm getting out of this is that Yeshua was there with him, raising his hand. This is the thing, like, I've been seeing stuff about the whole Trump issue right now, and people are saying, well, the reason why Trump didn't get a second term, even though there's all the prophets and all these people claiming, that he's gonna get a second term, is because Yahuwah is trying to tell us that we shouldn't put our trust in man, we shouldn't put our faith in a man, and that's what so many Christians have been doing. I can agree with that and disagree with it at the same time, because Yahuwah, yes, we are not putting our trust and faith and hope in a man, and yet we are. Why? Because he works through humans. He worked through Moses. He worked through Cyrus. He works through people. That's how he does. Now, there's times where he comes down as a pillar of fire and he does stuff, no question. But the primary mode that he works through is through people. And it just seemed in this geopolitical system that Trump was the vessel through which he has been, and we were praying would work through. Is that still going to happen? I don't know. But it is interesting how geopolitical events seem to mirror, as you were talking about earlier, the Torah portions. You know, is Trump going to be our Moses? I don't know. I found it almost blasphemous in Biden's departure speech when he left Delaware or someplace. He did some kind of speech at, I think it was an Air Force base or something named after his son. And there's some rabbi that prayed over him, and this rabbi said that Biden and Harris were our Moses and Aaron. I'm going, wow. How that, like, that's just ridiculously blasphemous. But if you've been anybody's been paying attention to geopolitical events and what's happening in this country in particular, and the 30-something executive orders that, I'm just going to say B-boy has signed in 1 week, and how horrific they all are, clearly he's not playing the part of Moses. We're about to find ourselves in a situation where, you know, we're being forced to work with no food, you know. Anyway, I don't want to turn this into a political soapbox, but yeah, it's a big difference between the two administrations. I'll just say that. Nephilim look like show up in verses 14 and 15. The people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold on the inhabitants of Palestina, and the dukes of Edom shall be amazed, and the Geborim, the mighty ones of Moab. Trembling shall take hold of them, all the inhabitants of Canaan, which are the Canaanites, were the giants. So I wrote, this is very strategic to take them out of Egypt first. It's the angel of the Lord that does that. Earlier we see that, and there's several places, this is chapter 15. In verse 3, chapter 15, verse 3, Yahuwah is a man of war. Yahuwah is his name. So he's like, they're setting the stage right. Okay, this is, yes, we're going to battle, but he's their commander-in-chief. Yahuwah is. And verse 6, 15:6, thy right hand, O Yahuwah, is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Yahuwah, hath dashed in pieces the enemy. And there's a blog, I'll put a link in the show notes for this. And this is one of the Torah portions that got me thinking along these lines. You know, how do we understand the Godhead, right? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I do believe that there is a Father, there is a Son, there is a Holy Spirit. This is three that are one. That's unity. So you have a tri-unity. That is about as far as I'll take my definition of the Trinity. I do not subscribe to the Trinity by the definition given to us by a mythical worshiper under pain of death. That is the standard Christian dogma today. And one of the things that got me kind of off of that page was this study right here. The right hand of Yahuwah is salvation, is Yeshua. And I'll put this link in the chat room. I'm not going to read it because there's a lot of information here. But suffice it to say, I came to believe, to just accept what the scriptures say. It says that his right hand is his Yeshua. And Yahuwah's name, Yod-Heh Vav-Heh, the letter meanings of the name mean, behold the hand, behold the nail. Well, what hand had a nail in it? You know, I mean, like how many, I mean, these are all the references. This is a long blog, so I'm not going to read through all this. But these are all the reasons why. And looking at the letter meaning of the word Yeshua, the Yod Shin Vav Ein, doing the same thing like with the name of Yahuwah, Yod He Vav He, behold the hand, behold the nail, or Yod He. So Yod is hand, He is behold, Vav is nail, and He is behold. So hand, behold, nail, behold. Yod Shin Vav Ein means the hand, or can mean, the hand that destroys the establishment of the eye. And that's why I put a little X through the all-seeing eye in the back of a dollar bill, that he's the hand that pokes out the eye of the Illuminati right there. But, I mean, here's all these references, you know, starting really the first time here in the Torah, Exodus 15:6, thy right hand, O Yahuwah, is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Yahuwah, hath dashed in pieces the enemy. And we see all these other references to his mighty right hand being his salvation. In Isaiah, behold, God Elohim is my salvation, Yeshua. I will trust and not be afraid, for the Yahuwah is my strength and my song. He has also become my Yeshua. Victorious right hand, Isaiah 41:10. Anyway, you can read through all this on your own if you want to, but that was where I began to come off the page of the standard Trinitarian doctrine and just believe what the scriptures say, that Yeshua is the physical right hand of the Father, and that the Holy Spirit is the physical breath, wind, spirit of the Father. It's all one. I mean, Hero Israel, Yahuwah is one. Okay. I'm just going to say amen. I agree. So this was one of the Torah portions that got me thinking along those lines, quite some time ago. Let's see here. I put survival key, Exodus 15:26, and said, if, conditional, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of Yahuwah thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon you, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am Yahuwah that heals thee. And they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells. Okay, this is another note right there. But anyway, that's the key to our survival. If we are going into a second Exodus, a key tribulation period type of thing. Let me see. What else did I have? 16. The church is there in chapter 16, verse 1. All the congregation. I forget the Hebrew word that's used there, but that's the same Hebrew word that is translated in the Greek word for called out ones for the church. So the congregation is all over the place in chapter 16. The word congregation there. I think that's about it. I mean, I've got lots of highlights and other things here, but I did find it interesting in chapter 17 that if you go back to the account of Abraham, he left Ur the Chaldees, and the patron god of Ur the Chaldees was a moon god named Sin. So he was like called out of sin to leave Ur the Chaldees to go to the land that Yahuwah would show him, which would be the land of Canaan. And we see also in Exodus 17, and all the congregation, the church, the children of Israel, journeyed from the wilderness of Sin. Now, that's a phonetic English word right there, sin being equated to what we understand as sin. Probably has a different meaning there in Hebrew, but translated as sin, I just think that's interesting. They journeyed from the wilderness of Sin, and in their journeys, according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched at in Raphadim, and there was no water for the people to drink there, and that's when they began to murmur. Sort of a side note, similar to Raphadim, the Raphaim. I always wondered what the Raphaim were, because we know the Canaanites were giants, but the Raphaim is translated, I think it's like 25 times in reference to giants and shades and the dead ones. You know, it's all kinds of interesting translations from Raphaim, and the Raphaim have a root word in Rapha, which has a connotation of healing. We have like Jehovah Rapha, God my healer. So I was like, what is the deal with the Raphaim? And we have Og Bashan, who's of the remnant of the Raphaim. And some who believe in multiple incursions want to say that the Raphaim are another breed, essentially, of Nephilim, which I've always struggled with that. I'm like, I don't see it, because we have the inhabitants of the land referring to the Nephilim by different titles. We know that the Nephilim are the Jebusites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, all the ites of Genesis chapter 10, 6 through 20. Those are the ones that were slated for utter destruction time and time again by the Israelites. But every now and then you get these other ones like Zuzim and Zamzumim and other titles, but we find out that that's what they are. Those are titles that the people of the land gave them, and those titles have meaning, like the roving creatures or the horrible ones or the terrors, and those are titles that they gave to them. Well, I don't know if you caught the show that I did with Dr. Judd Burton just recently posted last week, and he, through an interesting study that he's done, has come to the understanding that looking at the word for king that is used in something like 78, I think he said 70 something different languages, has a root that traces back to the same root for Raphaim. So his conclusion is that the Raphaim were simply the royalty of the Nephilim. So you could have a Canaanite that is a giant of the line of Canaan, but he's a king or a prince, he would be considered a Raphaim. So Raphaim was simply the title for the royalty of the Nephilim. I was like, dude, that like solves so much. I've been struggling with that for like 10 years now. Now I'm like, oh, I get it. And that's why it says that Og Bashan, who was a king, was of the remnant, the last of the kingly lines at that time of the Nephilim. So, kind of cool insight. Anyway, that's all the notes that I had, some of the insights from previous years of my studies on this. Did you find what
somebody in the chat said, did you study out Beshalach and the whole back and forth of Pharaoh and Moshe with this word in previous portions is a fascinating study.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that sounds interesting though.
I don't. Doesn't sound familiar. Doesn't. I don't think so.
I'll have to look into that. The back and forth. I wasn't able to get the music to come through on my mixer over here, but if you guys still want, I can sing you this song.
Yeah, let's do it.
Man, so I'm only doing this because I was so pumped up about this Song of Moses, and believers need to have music, and then I was like, man, now I got to share the songs that I'm working on because I'm putting myself on the spot. So anyways, that's why I'm doing this, because I feel like I up talked it too much, and now I got to show that go and do it. Okay, so here's this is shout out to Adam Fink. He's done the music part of this, and eventually we'll have it put out for people to listen to. So okay, here it goes. We used to hear of the promises that Elohim spoke to Abraham. Yet here we are in a distant land. Our heritage is like sifting sand. Who are we but the distant seed of our forefather, whom you showed mercy? So remember us and your promises, and restore to us your inheritance. Receive us again, just the distant seed of Father Abraham, tossed about the ocean of people who have forgotten your master plan, to make a mighty nation that'll follow you and your lasting truth, Yah of Abraham. Receive us again, Yahuwah Yasha, 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 Yahuwah Yasha. So call to him from the ascend and repent from sin, and just listen in. Our ignorance has been shed at last. Now we seek out all of the ancient paths. You split the sea and make the blind to see. You are the mighty El, and great in mercy, great in mercy. Yahuwah Yasha, Yahuwah Yasha, Yahuwah Yasha, Yahuwah Yasha. You make the donkey talk and the lame to walk. Yah of Israel, receive us still. All right.
That's awesome, man.
So yeah. Anyways, we'll put out an actual song here soon once we get it work together. But
yeah, right on, dude.
I just wanted to encourage people. Yeah, the last last year, I did like a little thing called Noob Worship for a while, and the whole purpose of that was to show, look, I stink at guitar playing. I'm not that great. I don't really know these songs, but just putting your abilities and talents out there for Yah to use is something I wanted to encourage people, and I really wanted to focus in on this music thing because it is so needed in our community. Really good worship, spirit filled, just like mighty songs of Moses, and it doesn't just have to be one person. The more people, the merrier. And whether you think you have the ability or you're ready, just trust the Most High and step out and start using your talents and abilities for Him. And I think that's it's partially tied to the parable of the talents, right? Yah gives there's this parable of the talents, right? The people that buried their talent, right? They were facing judgment for the master when he came to collect what they had done with the talent. But if you take your talents that he has given you and you invest them, you'll get returns on that you can put before the feet of the Most High. And for a lot of my life, I realized that I didn't do things openly, or I didn't put things out there because I was worried about what people would think. But whenever you come to the understanding that serving the Most High and doing things in his name for him and his glory can be the most emboldening thing out there. And I just, let's all start singing songs of Moses and songs of the Lamb. Let's do it.
Yeah, right on. Absolutely. Well, any other comments on the Torah portion or on the prophets or New Testament?
Yeah, well, that's pretty much all the main points. This is just the wrap up of the whole drama period between the children of Israel in Egypt and them finally seeing the fruition of the prophecies that they had been hearing for years and years. Of this coming, Moses figure, right? I talked about that last time, pointing out in Jasher how Miriam actually was prophesying of Moses' role, and all these people were waiting for the Most High to deliver them as he had promised. And even to the point where some of them were jumping the gun, like the tribes of Ephraim that took up the sword, and they ended up all dying in the desert, because they hadn't waited for the amazing, miraculous deliverance that Yah had promised them on the back end of things. And so, no matter what's going on in the world, let's wait for the deliverance of the Most High, and just keep our faith on Him and walk that narrow, righteous path. And there's a lot of promises that come along with that.
Yeah, right on. Something you read earlier from the Joshua account caught my eye. It said he split in 12 parts. He split the Red Sea in 12 parts. The first I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Oh, that would kind of make a little bit of sense, though. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's true or not. Because if we're trying to move 2 million people across that land bridge, let me bring up the study notes page again. That's pretty massive. I forget what the distance is right here, but people can go on Google Earth and look this region up of the Red Sea, and apparently Ron Wyatt and others have found different things here, like chariot wheels have been discovered deep underwater here, and apparently there's like the Pillar of Solomon right here. I think it's on this end of it, I believe.
Oh yeah, and they ground down the on the Saudi Arabian side. The powers that be ground it down to where you can't see it, but it's on the other side still.
Oh, so
I think
maybe it's on this side.
I can't remember if it's on the Sinai Peninsula side where it's not ground down, and one side it was ground down. But after Ron Wyatt, I guess he was one of the ones who was accredited with discovering these pillars, right, or pointing them out. In recent history, after the fact, the Muslim authorities there in Saudi Arabia came in and removed evidence of the Red Sea crossing. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, man. I mean, the evidence for this right here being the site is extremely compelling, put it that way. I mean, they've even done like underwater scans and stuff. Like there's a natural land bridge right here that, I mean, it's still pretty deep in this area, but it's a lot more shallow on the land bridge area here than it is on either side of it. So, I mean, is that just a coincidence, right?
Did you ever see Michael Rood's Red Sea crossing video where they showed the coral encrusted chariot wheels?
I haven't seen his presentation, but I've seen lots of videos on that. In fact, there's one video right here already on the show page that talks about some of that right there. I had some other. I mean, we see like the Hollywood version of it, right? Even that's still impressive, though.
Yeah.
I mean, if you imagine there's 2 million people, whether he split it up into 12 different splits or one big one, you got to move a lot of people through a vast difference here or distance here. I mean, and you're thinking women, children, animals, old people, carts. Like this wasn't. I mean, in the movies we watch it and it's a 10-minute, special effect, and we think, "Wow, that's cool, that's impressive." But no, this probably took the better part of the entire night to go, move that amount of people across that amount of distance with a pillar of fire, behind them, keeping the Pharaoh and his armies back. I mean, that was an impressive sight, and if you're walking right in the middle of it and you're looking over, I mean, could they see like sharks and fish, on the other side, like an aquarium or what, on the other side of it? Could you reach your hand into the water? You got to know, like, if I was walking through here, that's what I'd have been doing. First of all, I've been completely floored by the spectacle. Like, wow, this is incredible. But I'd have been looking in the water there too, like put my hand in there and.
Yeah, I love that scene in the Prince of Egypt DreamWorks film where the whale like swims by and the little girl's like looking up at it like, whoa.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I would have been.
This topic of the Red Sea crossing is really important personally for me because just in terms of my early faith walk, a logical, empirical understanding of who the true creator is and it actually it comes to some of these instances of proof that there was an Exodus account because and when you look at logical empirical reasons for putting a faith in the Holy Bible, right? You have all these different conflicting reports from archaeologists and that's why documentaries like Patterns of Evidence were amazing for really kind of solidifying okay, so let's break it down this way. If we want to have not just a erroneous faith, but rather a faith that's based on empirical things, like I'm talking about ministering to somebody who was an atheist once or something like that, you want to have evidence, you want to have reasons why you put faith in the Bible versus faith in the Hindu texts or this other book or this book here. But when I looked at the Exodus account and some of these examples of actual markers showing the crossing of the Red Sea and the chariot encrusted wheels, along the seafloor there, supposedly there's a golden wheel of Pharaoh that was in some of those documentaries I watched. But, it really does give you a baseline because if the God that brought the children of Israel out of Egypt is the true creator, and he is the God of heaven and earth, then we'll see evidence and proof of his manifestation and workings, playing out in the real world historical, record, right? And so, seeing evidence of the Red Sea crossing, seeing evidence of the mountain burned to a crisp there in Saudi Arabia, seeing, evidence of the possible resting place of Noah's Ark and all these different things at the split rock, that Moses hit with his stick, right? These things point to the validity and the authenticity, the empirical, truth behind the scripture. And what it does is it makes somebody who has a very rational mind, they're like, oh, I can't believe in the miraculous or miracles that I can't see. Well, look at these miracles that you can see that show that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the true God. Mm-hmm. Because, and this is one of the great, lines of thinking whenever you're talking with somebody who, really, it's just, they can't believe in these fantastical stories. Well, if the Bible, which is one of the most consistent texts in the historical record, many manuscripts and translations that are, for the most part, tell the same consistent story. If they characterize this God who really did make these things to happen, then I want to know what he wants for us, and I want to know, what he would command, because. That's exactly what the children of Israel were being given, this torch to carry this light, the truth of the Torah and of the Most High to the nations and to the world. And what they did was they were given this amazing experience that they were supposed to go and remind their children every year at Passover. Hey, there were mighty things that Yah did. This is the whole point of the Song of Moses, is saying, our God is the God that, can just rock the world. And so, that's one of these things about the Red Sea crossing that gets me excited and why I think is a very important part. Not to mention, there's also, incredible parallels there with the crossing of the Red Sea and the baptism process found in the New Testament. It represents coming from Egypt, going through the waters, going through the waters of baptism into a new life where you're going to seek after the commandments of the Most High. So there's definitely, even messianic important parallels there that we've not even had the chance to tap into in today's talk.
Yeah, and perhaps not coincidentally, ODD TV is with us in the chat room here, and he's an extremely talented musician. So here we are talking about putting the Bible to music. Maybe there's people out there already who can do some collaboration out there. I can appreciate music, but I can't read it, write it, or sing it. So sorry, I'm out. But people out there who can play instruments and do all that stuff, man, more power to you. I think let's do it, man. Why not, right? We can do it. Well, good note to end on, man. Good show. Thanks for your comments and everything, and for your singing, Jake. That was very cool. I enjoyed that. Looking forward to hearing it with music behind it. That'd be awesome, man. You want to take us out with the Aaronic, and somebody said I said ironic. No, it's not ironic. Aaron blessing, Numbers chapter 6.
Yes. Yeah. Let me pull this up real quick. All right. So. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his son, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, Yahuwah bless thee and keep thee. Yahuwah make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them.
Amen. There was something I wanted to show everybody here. First, let me switch the screen here. For those of you who would like to continue the discussion, make sure I post the link for the Discord server here. We are on Discord, so I'll post that link in the chat room. And there was something I was watching a video right before we came on the air here by Arthur Bailey. I don't know if you ever listened to any of his stuff.
Yeah. I remember him from the Wave documentary as well.
Yeah. He's got some pretty good stuff out there. Anyway, I got a screen capture from something he had posted earlier. I think this is a good way to end this. And he was declaring this over his audience. This was a screen capture from his PowerPoint presentation, declaration for Jehovah's blessing. And he's like, say this out loud, right? I declare this is my season for peace, power, promises, and prosperity. I declare the peace of Jehovah in my life and in my body. I declare the power of Jehovah to manifest fully in my life. I declare the promises of Jehovah fulfilled in my life. I declare the prosperity of Jehovah to permeate every area of my life. And I declare I will walk in obedience to Jehovah every day of my life. Good word there. There is power in the tongue, to declare blessings or curses, and we're doing one or the other all the time. I said earlier, sometimes I got a problem with my cursing. I got to get better at my blessing, and maybe that's a word for all of us. I was on a show talking about this with somebody else just recently, but it's important to speak things out. I'm not talking about name it, claim it, blab it, and grab it, prosperity message teaching. That said, I do believe that we are heirs to the blessings of Abraham, and that dude prospered. Let's face it. He prospered. If we're supposed to be sons and daughters of the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, then we should not be operating as beggars and orphans. We should be operating as princes and princesses, of the King of Kings, right? So, I used to do this a lot more, and I'm going to get back to it again, but creating a contract, I call it a contract for myself. So what does that look like? Whatever you are not but need to be, write it in a contract. If you're not a confident person, you'd be like, make a contract. I'm a bold, confident person, something like that. And I used to put it up on my bathroom mirror so that I saw it, before I went to bed, and I would declare it before I went to sleep. And then when I woke up in the morning and got ready for the day, I would see it, when I wake up and declare it. And, I think we're entering into a season where we need to know who we are, as sons and daughters of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and speak blessings over ourselves, our spouses, our families, and there's a lot of negativity out there, and I've been guilty of focusing on it too much. In fact, I've had to step back, especially lately. I mean, it's so tempting. I watched something earlier today, and it was, we say Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat is the Hebrew for Sabbath, and Shalom is the Hebrew for peace. So we're saying, peace on the Sabbath. Well, I was robbing peace from myself by looking at some of the current events, which I've been guilty of doing typically on the weekends, overdosing on political events and whatever is going on in the world right now. And it's like too much negativity. I don't think we should put our heads in the sand and ignore it. I think we need to be aware of what's happening, but at the same time we need to overcome it with praise and blessing. And I think that's sort of the message of today's study, probably, if anything else. So with that, I say thanks again, Jake, so much. Thank you, Juan Carlos. I know you weren't able to join us, but you're in the chat room. Thank you for your insights earlier today. And Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We'll see you